All right, today we are looking in the Raleigh, Wake County area. So I'm going to be posting the fair market rents onto our community's Facebook group. And you can see that these are the published 2024 fair market rents for the Raleigh and Wake County area. Now, the important part is if you remember how we typically look at the rents for payment standards, looking for market rent, looking for FMR, we always talked about how usually the payment standards are a little bit higher, right? Payment standards are the rent that is determined usually by each public housing authority, and they will make an adjustment. It's either 100% of the FMR, 150% of the FMR in some instances, or in this scenario, you can see that what they call here is the contract rent. And they list out for this county, if your houses fall under this jurisdiction, you can see that the FMR might be 1811 for a FMR, but the contract rent is 1479. Now, the contract rent requested by the owner equals the fair market rent minus an estimated utility allowance that the housing authority is required to give to each family. This utility allowance is included in the rent calculation. So that's why your maximum rent for a two-bedroom home is 1479 and not 1811. So what I want all of us to take away from this is, well, how we've been underwriting every single day, no matter what city or county or state that we're in. We've been always using the same goal, which is if this looks like a deal, then I will spend more time researching it, right? We want to avoid burnout as much as possible. So in this scenario, when you see what the rents are, that's what you should be using to underwrite if you have more information. So yesterday we helped Chan underwrite a deal in Durham. So I figured, hey, why not just stay in the area and see what else is happening in the Raleigh, Durham area? Because I knew that Raleigh, Durham is a very, very fast growing area. So let's take a quick look at it. All right. So I went in here and I looked at the rents and I said, okay, well, if the contract rent is around $1,500 and I want to follow the 1% rule, then for a duplex, I want to stay under $300,000, right? Just using a very, very rough rule. $350,000 technically the cutoff. But I kind of just searched around and said, okay, well, this is probably the closest I'm going to get to it. I found a home for on 630 North Taylor Street. Let me make sure I set up this file. And the purchase price here is 389,500. Okay. This is a 4-bed, 2-bath. So there are two-bedroom units in the zip code 27587. Let me get the contract rent. Raleigh County contract rent. And the contract rent was 1479 per two-bedroom, 1479. And just so we prove it out, let's look up the HUD FMR for this property. HUD FMR, we're trying to get the fair market rents and we're trying to get the access to small area FMRs. By going to North Carolina, we're able to see Wake County, 27587, 27587, and you see the FMR is 1660 here. Okay, which makes sense because they probably added some utility allowance, stuff like that, 1660. Let me write that one down. Now, even though the FMR is higher, right, this is the most likely rent I will use. Now, they still gave themselves an out. It says, hey, HUD requires that the Raleigh Housing Authority determine if the requested rent amount is reasonable. This is the rent reasonableness test that I always stress to you all about. The rent reasonableness test says that you have to compare your unit to unassisted units, which means these are units that are on the market. And so that's why you cannot charge more to a voucher holder simply because they're a voucher holder. You can't charge them more than what the market rent is reasonable. All right. So for this property, let's take a quick look at the condition of the property. Looks like the kitchen's renovated. Yeah, this looks pretty turnkey for the most part. I'm not sure if it's just for one unit. Let me see if there's anything in the description. Great movement investment property, beautiful renovated duplex. So it sounds like they're trying to say that both units have been renovated already. New windows and HVAC in 2020 for both units. Okay. Let's take a quick look at the property. Pretty suburban. I can't tell if those are mobile homes. Okay, not bad. Check the schools. 7 and 8, those are great schools. Great school. So that could be somewhere where someone wants to stick around for a while if they are with kids, right? Think about like a single mom with a kid or something like that, and they want to do something or be in a better school district so that they put their kid in the best position to succeed. So I'm going to tophap.com right now and I'm going to check out the neighborhood score really quick. I'm assuming it's going to be good. And boom, it is good. 66 out of 100. I live in an area where it's like 88. So this is a great crime score, great neighborhood. All right, good. Those boxes check off. And we saw that it's unlikely going to have any big renovations because it seems like it's been renovated. They even took care of the outside. So what I'm going to do is let me get some numbers here. So 389, 500. The next number I want to get is my renovations. So for this property, I don't think I even need to paint it because it really sounds like they have already renovated the property up to a standard that I care about. So nothing for painting, nothing for my flooring. I'm gonna assume that a roof might still have some issues. You never know. I don't know if they just did a cosmetic rehab. So I'm gonna set aside $1,500 for the roof, $500 to keep the landscaping clean outside while I get it rented, keep it nice and clean. I'm gonna replace 2 toilets for the high pressure flush toilets that I always talk about. So I have less issues of toilets clogging, and that gives me a $3,500 rehab, right? Assuming everything's turnkey. All right. So my rent right now, let me actually double check the market rent. So we got the FMR. Let me see if I can get the rents for a 2 bedroom for the market rent because I still want to just double check on the market rent estimator, right? Boom. And I'm going to put in 2 bedrooms here, get the estimate. Whoops. And you can see that my rent is roughly 1314 for the market rent. 1314. And that's for 25 units within a half-mile radius. So that's pretty close. 1754. That's pretty close to 1479. And in this scenario, I'm gonna go with 1479 because that's what's been listed out there. Might it fall down to 1400? Yeah, it could. It could. Absolutely. 14. I'm gonna start with that scenario first, 1479. And the only reason I'm doing this rent above the market rent is because they have listed out that's what the rents they will allow to be charged. 1479. And that does not include any utilities, so that makes my underwriting a little bit more straightforward. All right. So let's assume I have a 25% down, 8% interest rate. My finance amount is equal to the purchase price subtracted by the down payment. So I'm financing $292,000 at 8%. I have roughly around $9,800 in closing costs, $3,500 in rehab. This is a $100,000 down payment. Let's see what my property taxes are for this property. Property taxes right here says 137. So I'll put in 137 right here for property taxes. My insurance is 153. So we always talk about how I increased insurance by 20%. And boom, there it is right there. I got 10% for my maintenance. I got 10% from my property management. I got 5% from my vacancy just because it's an attached home. I'm not going to assume it has as high of attractiveness as a single family home because there's technically a neighbor next to you. And for this property, this would be a negative $245 cash flow, which is this number right here, negative 245. So assuming my rent here, and I underwrote using the contract rent system published, is 2958. My cash flow here is negative $245. My cash and cash return here is negative 2.7% cash and cash return. I was assuming a $350,000 purchase price and a $3,500 rehab. So what we always do is what? We always try to figure out what terms would make this a deal. So I'm not going to be able to adjust up my rent anymore because I'm already using the maximum 1479. So I'm not going to be able to get higher rents than that. Okay. Well, what if I buy this property for cheaper? What would I need to buy this property for in order for me to cash flow 10%? Let's just roughly. And I know this is a high appreciating area, so your my cash and cash return criteria is a little bit lower, down to 10%, not my normal 15%, because I think it's going to appreciate in this area. 230, 235, 240. Oops, not 2.4 million. And you can see that I would be willing to buy a property for $240,000, assuming it's a duplex with two two units. That'll give me a 10% cash and cash return, resulting in a $577 cash flow a month, and that assuming it's 2,958. So I'm very confident if I get a turnkey property that only requires $3,500 and it's a duplex with two units, I mean two bedrooms in each unit, I will buy right away for $240,000. See how we came up with the buy box there? So now all of a sudden, this is our criteria for what we would purchase this property at. Great. Now you just learn something about this market in Raleigh based off of the rents that you have researched and then based off of the underwriting that you use. Well, what if you use your own W-2 salary to buy the property and qualify for a conventional investment loan, and you might have a lower interest rate. Let's say you got 7% interest rate, right? Let me just update this. So these were all 25% down and 8% interest rate. I'm going to try to update all of these ones for you so you guys can see and follow along what I'm doing here. Now I'm going to change the scenario. Well, now if I'm able to get 7% interest rate, what might I be willing to pay for this property? 270,000, 260,000. Cool, 9.6. So you see that if I'm able to get a loan for 7%, well, now all of a sudden I'm able to pay up to $260,000 and still achieve the same cash and cash return. And I'll be cash flowing $600 a month. So you see how the rent stayed the same, right? But let's say I went to a mortgage loan broker and I got an updated quote on a term sheet. And because I have a W-2 job, right? Which some of you might have a W-2 job and you can qualify for up to 10 investment loans using your own income to qualify versus a DSCR loan, which is a debt service coverage ratio loan that determines the qualification based on the rents you're able to achieve with the market, right? Very, very different. And so those are the scenarios that you want to go through. So now you'd be willing to pay $260,000. Well, all right. That's not bad. I don't think the interest rate can go down 6% for an investment loan, but let's just say you wanted to live in one side and it's a primary residence area now, right? So what would that allow you to purchase to that, assuming it's still a 10% cash and cash return? $270,000, $275,000. So 10%. So now you wanted to pay $275,000 if you were able to get a primary residence loan for 6%. Rehab was still $3,500. You're still giving 25% down. Your rent is still the same at $2,958, but now you're cash flowing $661 at 10%. So you can see how the interest rates can affect what you're willing to pay for a property. Here's the thing. Well, what if you live in one side, right? Then you gotta subtract this by 1479, right? Because you're not getting rents from that one side anymore. But in reality, your loss here, assuming you get for 275, what is your loss? Your loss is quote unquote $450 a month. Okay, if you're losing $450 a month, might that be worth it to you? If that's really what you are paying in rent, quote unquote, right? What's the alternative? Alternative is that you go rent a place and you got to pay $1,500 for a two-bedroom unit. Here, you might be losing $450 a month, but in reality, that's really due to expenses. And if you don't have any expenses, right? If you manage your own property on yourself and you don't have any maintenance because you got really lucky and fortunate because you're staying on top of preventive maintenance because you live right next door, well, now you're only losing $450 a month. And that's really the equivalent of you paying rent, but you're putting that rent back into your own property. So it's all about perspective, right? It's all about what you and your situation looks like. This is not investment advice. This is not solicitation for any investments. But I thought this was a really good way to approach analyzing these multifamily properties using Section 8, which we have a higher confidence in the rental amount, right? We just saw how the market rent was about $1,300, but you can argue, hey, this is a two-bedroom, 1.5 bath. Square footage is a little nicer. It's renovated. And now all of a sudden you can really charge a 1479. So that's why it's not too far-fetched, because they already published that as the contract rent right on their housing authority's website. So now you have confidence in a rent. Now all of a sudden you can decide where you want to live and how you want to live and how much are you willing to quote unquote take out of your pocket for your own property that you're living in now. And don't forget, this is obviously not tax advice, but if you live in there as a private residence and you sell the property and you're a individual person filing your taxes as a single household, well, $250,000 of the capital gains is exempt for income taxes. So let's say there's another big boom and it goes up by 250 grand in 5 years. Well, you don't have to pay any taxes when you sell it. So might that interest you? Maybe. So there's tons of different strategies here, but all in all, let's kind of recap what we did today. So we got the rents for the Raleigh County. We figured out how they calculate what the maximum rents are and that what we want to use for our own underwriting. Okay. When you have that, all right, then you start going into the market and try to figure out, well, what price point do I really need to look at? I know this $550,000 one probably isn't going to cash flow if it's just two-bedroom units. So I found one all the way up here for $390,000. Okay, then I started looking at the analysis and looking at condition of the property. We did a street view. We looked at tophab.com for the neighborhood score, which was great. And then afterwards, we said, well, let's go ahead and get the market rents. We got the market rents here, got the contract rents here. We even checked the HUD FMR for the fair market rents. We plugged it in, played around with the numbers on the purchase price. We plugged in the rehab based on what we saw in the photos. We plugged in the rents and we had to multiply by 2 earlier because there's 2 units, right? We got the property taxes from the Redfin and we got the insurance number from Redfin. And now I put in 10% for maintenance because there's going to be preventive maintenance that happens at your home every single year. HVAC tune-up, water heater, everything. You're going to have to spend a little bit of money every single year on your property. Got to set aside some money for property management, even if you're going to self-manage it. But what if you get really wealthy one day and you want to hire a property manager because you don't want to do it anymore? Well, you got to set aside some numbers to manage your property. Otherwise, you're buying yourself another job, right? And then I got 5% for vacancy because someone will eventually move out. And then once we plug in all the numbers, we decided to play around with interest rates to see what would make it a deal and how that would affect the purchase price. At $349,000, even you got a 5% multifamily loan, you are technically losing $90, assuming your 6% interest rate. So lots of things to consider, lots of scenarios to consider. Just remember, what we're doing here is making sure that you are prepared to decide whether or not it's worth your time to investigate the property further, to get a contractor to go out there, to get a realtor to go out there. Because remember, if you want to build a team of all-stars, chances are the all-stars are busy. So you have to make sure you're being really wise with your resources time so that they don't think you are the boy who cried wolf, for instance, for lack of better words. So, all right. Thank you so much for analyzing the deal with me today. Happy New Year's to all of those folks that are celebrating the Lunar New Year. I wish everyone a year of amazing wealth, amazing health. Take care of your family and your friends and stay consistent with me. Let this be the year that you stay on top of your habits and make sure that your why is very clearly defined. And I really thought about it. And I'll be honest with you all. I did a Clifton strength test recently, and I saw that my strength is not discipline or consistency. My top 10 strengths, one of them is actually belief and self-assurance. And I finally realized how I had to get myself to be disciplined, motivated. It's because I have to think about, why am I doing this? And the why outweighs human tendency to be lazy, to be inconsistent, to be undisciplined. And my why is, one, I want to help that person, I want to walk that person into the home. Might be a single mom with their two kids, and they bring in their two bags of clothes because that's all they have. Walk into the home and they get a little teary eyed because they're so happy about how beautiful of a home they're about to move in. They smile a little bit and give me a hug. And I have never been more free ever since I realized that that's what I want. We do this for the thank yous. We do it for the emotional income, which is far more fulfilling than any amount of monetary income in the world for us. One way I stay disciplined is that every single day I've been posting in my Instagram stories, hey, this is how many push-ups that I'm doing. This is how many days I've been going live straight for. And I had original goal to do this for 100 days in a row. And now we are at 100 day, like 133. And I realized the reason why I did that was because, hey, why would people ever want to partner with you or listen to you or take advice from you? Well, people only typically follow others for their own selfish reasons, which means, like, what can you do for them? And I realized that the best way to solve this affordable housing problem is by giving out as much value as possible and removing the fear. And I remember one of the biggest fears I had was, how do I know this is a deal? How would I not lose money on this deal? And that's why I started analyzing deals. And I started analyzing deals every single day. And it wasn't until I got on a Zoom with somebody else and showed them how to analyze deals, and they're like, "Oh wow, you're doing this on a whole nother level. Like, this is really useful. You should do this more for other people." And that's when I decided to go live every day and analyze deals and help other people, because I didn't realize it was a value. But the lesson here is that if you take one step forward, the next step usually reviews itself. It might not be within an hour, within a day, a week, month, or a year, but if you just keep taking steps forward, you got this. So let this be your year. It's a year of the dragon, and I'm so pumped for this year. We have so much positive momentum in life right now, and I can't thank you all for being part of this affordable housing investment community. Thank you so much for caring about affordable housing. Without all of you, I would have never had the home I grew up in. So thank you so much for participating. Thank you so much for all the feedback. Thank you so much for all the outreach. Thank you so much for that emotional support, because without all of you, I probably would have quit the social media thing a long time ago. So thank you so much for all the feedback. I'm so glad all of our live sessions are valuable. I'm so happy that all of our podcast conversations have been tremendously helpful in your career and helping you on your journey. It means the world to me when you guys reach out and give us some feedback. So thank you so much for all the support. My family and I truly, truly appreciate it. May this be your best year yet. And take care of yourself, your family, and friends. And have an amazing Saturday, everybody. I'll be back here again tomorrow, and we're